Hey guys, it's Laura, and in today's video I'm going to be recommending some short books. So 2020 has been a year, and during quarantine you were probably either one of two people. Either you were the person that read absolutely everything because you were stuck at home and had nothing else to do, or you were the person that just barely got any reading done at all because you could not focus on reading with everything else going on in the world, which I totally get. And because of that, I know a lot of us are very much behind on our yearly reading goals, our Goodreads goals. So I thought I'd do a recommendation video of some short books. These are all books that are around 200 pages or under that you could finish in one sitting or at least in one day, so that you can, you know, kind of boost your reading goal for the year. So I'm going to kind of do this in two parts. The first set of books that I'm going to talk about are books that I have read and enjoyed and want to recommend to you. And then after that, I have 5 books that are on my TBR that I haven't read that are also short books that you might be interested in as well. I just can't like personally recommend them to you because I haven't read them yet. But let's go ahead and get started. And I'm going to start with the most obvious one, and that is the Wayward Children series by Seanan McGuire, the first book being Every Heart a Doorway. So in this book, in this series, we are following kids who have traveled to different worlds, different fantastical worlds, and these worlds fit them perfectly, and it's their home. But for whatever reason, they get thrown back into the reality, into our real world, and they have a really hard time coping. And so there is this school that they go to called Eleanor West's Home for Wayward Children, where they go to be around other kids who have experienced the same things that they have and understand what they're going through, and also, you know, wait for their door to open again. It is such a beautiful, whimsical series. Seanan McGuire's writing is absolutely stunning. Such a well-rounded, well-developed world and series. In each and every single book you get a full story, and they're very, very short. This book is 169 pages. So definitely a book that you can read in one sitting or, you know, in one day. There are currently 5 books out in the series right now. So if you like this one, you could potentially read all of them in like a week or less, and they all are around 200 pages or less. So definitely recommend this book and this series. I do not think you'll be disappointed. The next book I want to talk about is another book by Seanan McGuire, and it's one that I never hear anyone talking about. I feel like Seanan McGuire is a very well-known, well-loved author here on BookTube, but I never hear anyone talking about this particular book, and that is Dusk or Dark or Dawn or Day by Seanan McGuire. This is another really short one. This is 182 pages. I read this in one sitting. I couldn't put it down. It was so good. So in this book, we're following our main character, Jenna, and Jenna is dead. So she is a ghost. But the way the world works in here is that if you die before your time, then you need to work off the remaining years that you would have had. Do you know what I mean? So Jenna died really young, but she wasn't supposed to die that young. I believe that she took her life. She was supposed to live longer than that. So now she's brought back. This takes place in New York. She's working in New York for a suicide hotline to work off the years that she should have lived. The concept of that alone is incredibly interesting, right? But also, something is coming for the ghosts of New York. Something beyond reason, beyond death, and beyond hope, and Jenna is the only thing that stands in its way. That's all I'm gonna say. This book was absolutely incredible. I highly recommend it. Once again, it has Seanan McGuire's like beautiful, poignant writing with an incredibly interesting premise and an execution to match. So definitely check this one out. I feel like it's such a highly underrated book, especially for Seanan McGuire. The next book I have here is one that I read earlier this year, and that is The Housekeeper and the Professor by Yoko Agawa. This one comes in at 180 pages, and this is about a housekeeper. We never learn her name, I don't think, but she has a 10-year-old son, and she gets a job working for this professor. He is an incredibly smart man. He was a maths professor, and he had this accident where he suffered severe brain trauma. And so now he only has 80 minutes of short-term memory. So every time she goes back to this professor's house, she has to reintroduce herself. And they end up, the three of them, her, the professor, and her son, end up creating this kind of found family situation, and it's just so beautiful. It's a very quiet story, but so well done, so incredibly well written, and just absolutely beautiful and stunning. So I highly recommend this book. This is a translated work as well. Yoko Ogawa is a Japanese author, and this was translated from the Japanese. Definitely pick this one up. It did make me shed a tear or two, and I just think it's a really beautiful story. This is a really short one. It's only 126 pages, and it is written in verse. This took me about half an hour to read. It's called The End We Start From by Megan Hunter, and while it wasn't my favorite, I still really enjoyed what this book did. It's absolutely beautifully written, and it's about a young woman who is going through the normal perils of childbirth and raising children in the midst of an environmental crisis. So a flood has come to London. This takes place in London, England, and everyone kind of has to flee basically for their lives, and she's dealing with all of this while being pregnant and having to raise her child. It's a very interesting story. It doesn't focus so much on the environmental crisis and what is currently happening in the world, but it's more so focused on this main character and what she's personally going through as a mother. So I definitely recommend this one. Once again, a nice, really short one, quick to get through, and I think that it could be one that you might enjoy. Next, I have another book by Yoko Ogawa, and that is Revenge. This is a collection of short stories that are all interconnected, and these are more on the dark, atmospheric, almost horror side of things. So if you're into a little bit of darker fiction that doesn't get too scary or too gory or anything like that, then I definitely recommend this. I would describe this short story collection as haunting and beautiful. Beautifully written and beautifully told. Haunting and somewhat that makes you feel a little bit uneasy, but is not terrifying or scary in any way. This one is only 162 pages, and I think that it's definitely worth the read. Next, I have For Everyone by Jason Reynolds. So this is a long form poem, and it's basically just a very inspirational poem. This is like the little book of encouragement that you need. It says on the back, this is for the courageous and everyone who wants to be. I think that this is a great book to read like during the beginning of the year or like right at the end of the year to kind of get you excited and motivated for the year to come. So I definitely recommend checking this one out. It's only 101 pages, definitely easy to get through. And Jason Reynolds is an absolutely incredible writer. I love him, what I've read of him so far, so definitely check this one out. Next, I have this beautiful book here. This is by Rainbow Rowell. Rainbow Rowell is very popular here on BookTube, I feel, especially for her books Carry On as well as Fangirl. So this is a collection of 2 short stories that take place on New Year's Eve or New Year's Day. They're really fun, festive stories, and they're really sweet. They're romances. They're just really cute, fun stories to check out if you haven't yet. It's called Almost Midnight, and there are 2 stories in it. It's also illustrated by Simini Blocker, and the illustrations are really, really cute, if you can see there. So yeah, this is just like a really fun, festive book. I think it's a great book to read in the month of December, and you can get through it in like an hour. It's only 126 pages. It's really tiny. I think it's a great option to read during this month. Moving back into darker horror stories, we have The Ballad of Black Tom by Victor Laval. So in this book, we are following Charles Thomas Tester, who is working hard to just provide for him and his father in Harlem. I think this takes place in 1926. He is somewhat of a failed musician, and one day he gets approached by this wealthy white man to come perform at his house. And when he gets there, really strange things start to happen. That's all I want to say. It's such a short book. It's only 150 pages, and I think it's definitely a great book to just go into not knowing much and experiencing the story, because it is so good. The atmosphere is incredible in here. I loved the main character of Black Tom, and I just loved the whole world and the story so much. So highly recommend this one. I read it in October during the spooky month, but I think, you know, anytime's a good time for spooky books. The next book I have is To Be Taught If Fortunate by Becky Chambers. Becky Chambers wrote the Wayfarer series, and this is a little sci-fi novella that is just so incredibly well done. We're following a team of 4 scientists who have left Earth to travel to these 4 different planets to explore them and send their results back to Earth. However, once they get going on their journey, Earth stops responding, and this is the kind of message that they send back to Earth. It's really heartfelt and it's really character driven, but it also celebrates the act of scientific discovery, and I absolutely loved this book. It made me cry, it made me emotional. I definitely want to read more by Becky Chambers now. It's only 138 pages. You can definitely get through this in a day. This is definitely one to check out. Next we have Silver in the Wood, which is a book that I never talk about, but I absolutely loved this. This is by Emily Tesh, and in this book we are following a man named Henry Silver who inherits this sprawling mansion called Green Hollow Hall that backs up to this forest, and in this forest lives a wild man, the Green Man, this old forest spirit, and a relationship develops between Henry and this Green Man, wild man of the forest. It is so beautiful. The forest itself, the descriptions, it's just so atmospheric. If you love like fairy tale, dark forest type stories, this is definitely the one for you. It is so incredibly short. It's only 105 pages, but it puts so much into those 105 pages. It's beautiful. It's a beautiful romance. It's a beautiful fairy tale-esque type story that also has a little bit of darkness, and I absolutely love this book, and I don't know why I don't talk about it more, but I definitely recommend picking it up. There is also a sequel to this out. I forget what it's called, but I think it is a novella as well. So if you enjoy this one, then you can pick up the sequel and read that as well. Okay, and then the last book that I've read to recommend to you is If You Come Softly by Jacqueline Woodson. I've only read 2 books by Jacqueline Woodson, but honestly, she's one of my favorite authors. Her writing is just so authentic and so real and raw, and if you want a really good cry, read this book, because this book had me in hysterics. I was crying so much. In this book, we're following Jeremiah, who is a black boy, and Ellie, who is a white Jewish girl. And the 2 of them meet in high school and they fall in love. It is this beautiful, sweet, innocent first love romance that turns tragic because everyone in their life is trying to keep them apart because of their differences. It is so beautifully told, it's so heartfelt, and it's so honest and so reminiscent of so many real life stories, which is what makes it so devastating and heartbreaking. So yeah, go in knowing that it's going to make you sob and have tissues ready, but definitely read it because it is so good. This one comes in at 181 pages, definitely a book that you can read in a day. So those are the books that I have read that I wanted to recommend to you. Now I have a stack of 5 books that I haven't gotten to yet but are on my TBR, and I think that I'm absolutely going to love. The first one is The Deep by Rivers Solomon. This is 161 pages, and this follows the water-dwelling descendants of pregnant African slave women that were thrown overboard. But I've heard that Rivers Solomon's writing is absolutely stunning, and I'm really excited to check out more of their work, starting with The Deep. This cover is beautiful, and I've just heard so many good things. So that's one on my TBR. The next book I have is Riot Baby by Tochi Onyebuchi. I have read by Tochi Onyebuchi before, and I absolutely adore his writing. So I really think I'm gonna love this one. And this is about race and love and revolution. It says an epic ode to the future and past, tiny acts of resistance, love, and the wild, unstoppable sweep of revolution. This book is kind of on the longer side. It's 247 pages, but definitely still a quick read. And this is Beacon 23 by Hugh Howey. Once again, I haven't read this one, but this is a sci-fi novel that just sounds really amazing. And because of its short size, I feel like it's going to be really fast-paced and really exciting. And it says a network of beacons allow ships to travel across the Milky Way at many times the speed of light. These beacons are built to be robust. They never break down. They never fail. At least they aren't supposed to. And that really sucked me in. So I'm really excited to read this one. The next book I have here is 173 pages, and that is Upright Women Wanted by Sarah Gailey. This is a Western style queer story that follows librarians saving the world. So that sounds amazing. And then the last book I have here is the longest on this list and also the one I know the least amount about, and that is The River by Peter Heller. I know that this is a survival story, which intrigued me, but that's pretty much all I know. And this is 253 pages, so a little bit longer, but still a good short, quick one to get through, I'm sure. And those were all the books that I had to talk about today. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope that you got some recommendations so that you can read some of these and, you know, boost your reading goal a little bit before the end of the year. But do let me know down in the comments if you have read any of these books, what you thought of them, if you have any thoughts at all about them. Also, let me know down in the comments how you're doing with your reading goals. Have you fallen behind? Are you accomplishing them? Do you not even care anymore? Because that's an option too. You know I love hearing from you down in the comments. But that is going to be it from me today. If you like this video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up, hit subscribe, and I will see you in my next one. Bye guys!